Welcome back. You're watching Buckingham Business Review. I'm your host, Bernie Wolford. We are a video magazine who, on a monthly or weekly basis, examines the intersection of strategy, tactics, and people. This is our fourth segment with attorney Kevin Skedsvold, managing partner of Skedsvold & White. If you've missed any of the first three segments, I strongly encourage you to go back and watch them. In the third segment, we introduced a software as a service, a SaaS product called CompWorks, which has originated mostly through Kevin's efforts. And Kevin, for those who have gone back and watched segment 3 in which CompWorks was described, one question I have always had is, when there are so many participants that must be a part of some system in order to make it all work more effectively, how is it introduced into the marketplace? I mean, you've mentioned the value to the employer, the employee, the doctor, the nurse, the insurance company, a TPA who maybe is managing it. What domino falls over first? And how do you get that group of people in the same room around the same table to say, this makes so much sense, let's start next month?
It's the employer generally that drives it, because the employer is the one that has the risk. The employer is the one that's paying the money out.
Okay.
And so the employer is saying, look, we need some help in order to drive the workers' compensation process deliberately. We need to know what we have to do to get this person back to work because it's costing us money when they're out. So the employer wants to use this first. Then we would take them to their physicians that are on their approved panel of physicians list, and have the physicians that treat most of their workers cooperate with us and say, look, we're working to improve the process for this company. Mm-hmm. Will you help us? Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost the physicians anything. Okay. And in fact, if it's used properly, the physician can speed up payment because he doesn't have to worry about the medical record getting detached from the medical bill, and you have to have both before somebody's going to pay it.
So what's in it for me, which drives many decisions.
That's right.
There is a huge value add for the physician that you just mentioned.
Correct.
So it's not you must do this. It's here's a benefit.
And there's also a reason for the physician to want to use it, because it's less of their time taken doing administrative tasks. Sure. A lot of time when we have an injured worker that's been out of work and is then released to return to work with restrictions or modified duty, we have to get a job description approved by the physician. And that physician, he has his patients. There's a stack of things to do today, there's a stack of things that were done yesterday, and I'll get to that whenever. Right. So you have to get his attention. The best time to get his attention is right now when the patient is sitting in that room with him, and he can look at the patient, remember who they are, and remember that's the restriction, that's the problem, yes, they can do this job. Click here, it's done, and it's off of his plate.
While the patient is still in the office, reach the conclusion, take action, and then move on, as opposed to putting it back in the inbox for tomorrow.
Right. Touch it once, move on. That's the motto.
Makes sense. I love it. Well, Kevin, I'd like to address one more area of subject matter, given your presence in our studio today, and it's this whole issue of workers' compensation. I'm doing this less frequently than I used to, but with a certain amount of my consulting base being in California, they always are concerned with workers' compensation costs, what they are today, where they're going tomorrow. I know of some who have left the state of California, not purely because of workers' comp, but that was sort of the final straw. And I know of others who are considering discontinuing domestic operations and importing from overseas, with workers' comp costs being a part of others' costs. So could you just get out the crystal ball and tell us a little bit about what's happening in general with workers' compensation, its expense? Will we continue to hear some of these complaints and gripes about the expense, or are there things happening such as CompWorks that will bring it down?
There are countless developments going on, usually disassociated from each other. Sure. The primary cost driver for most of the comp systems is actually going to be the medical expense, medical and prescription expense. Okay, those are huge exposures for businesses, and until that is really brought under control, the comp systems are going to continue to struggle. Now, on a state-by-state basis, each workers' compensation system has its own design developed to address their own needs. Georgia, for example, has had a very stable work comp system probably since about 1992. There haven't been any major legislative changes. We've tinkered with it here and there. But the reason is the Chairman's Advisory Committee. I'm a member of that committee, and what that involves is various parties to this, players in the system. There are medical providers, there are insurance adjusters, there are defense attorneys, there are claimants attorneys, there are judges. We're all involved, and we're looking at it saying, what's going right with the system, what's going wrong? How do we work together for a consensus? And then that consensus is formed up into a legislative package.
Okay.
The legislative package is then presented next year to the Georgia General Assembly. So as a result, you don't have the free-for-all that we used to have, where the business interests were seeking one thing. Maybe the union or a trial lawyer group was seeking something else. Instead, you've had a system that has moved along fairly well. And the stability has actually made Georgia really attractive for business.
I was going to, first thing that popped in my head, if I'm searching for the location of my new facility and I'm state shopping, that has to be an issue.
It should.
One of the cost of doing business in Georgia compared to other options I have.
Workers' compensation is going to be the second largest controlable expense for any business.
Really?
Right
Really?
behind the cost of labor.
Really? Wow.
So
I had no
with
idea.
the exposure being that huge, with everything that these businesses have to deal with, they're going to have to look and see what are their workers' compensation rates going to be like, and what's the environment that they're going to live in. It should tell you something about the workers' compensation systems when that issue, workers' compensation, was a major issue in the governor's election that brought Arnold Schwarzenegger to the governor's mansion.
I recall that. Yes. Yes. Well, very good. Well, Kevin, our time goes so quickly on Buckingham Business Review. Thank you again for being our guest. And as a final question, what is the best way for our viewers to get in contact with you if they want to follow up on anything they've heard today? Some legal assistance or the CompWorks product, how can they best reach you?
Well, the office telephone number is 770-392-8610. Our website is skedsvoldwhite.com, and the CompWorks program can be found at compworks, CompWorks.net.
Well, that wraps up another segment with another great guest on Buckingham Business Review. I'm your host, Bernie Wolford. We do hope to see you again in the very near future with another great guest. So long for now.